on Real Talk with Gene Price.
Before the flight ever takes off, the pilot looks at the co-pilot and they go through worst case scenarios. They say, what are we going to do if the engine fails? Or if we hit some bad weather? And they just talk about it. And just because they did that, they literally saved lives. It's like they studied for a test that they didn't know if they would have, right? And I know that many of you are not pilots, right? I do know one thing about every single one of you, and it is that you cannot predict the future. This is about how you have the same chance as the person next to you that something bad is going to happen. But by just understanding mental models, you can prepare for it right now. We, as humans, want to turn away from anything that makes us anxious. You don't look at the exit sign because you don't want to entertain the idea of using the exit sign. But acknowledging this discomfort and dealing with that worst case scenario is the best comfort you could ever give yourself.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me tonight on Real Talk with Gene Price. I'm so glad you tuned in. We have a wonderful show that's in store. We have a great guest. Listen, we want you to go to comment. We want you to like. We want you to share. We have some great upcoming shows that are going to be coming out in the springtime, and we're starting now. We want you to engage. We want you to be a part of everything that we do at Real Talk. And what I love about our show and our team is that we talk about real life, real issues that affect what? Real people. And that's what Real Talk is all about. And we hope that every time you watch us, that there's a little glimpse of something that you can gain from Real Talk, because that's what Real Talk is all about. I want to take this time to thank you again for supporting us every Wednesday night at 6:30. To my production team, thank you for your support. So let's get started tonight. Have you ever thought about what's it like to start a business? Have you ever thought about, man, do I have what it takes to even start a business? Well, tonight we have a business expert that's going to be joining us, and she's going to give us some tools, some keys, and some principles on what's it like to start a business. So I want you to sit back, relax. I want you to help me welcome my guest tonight, Miss Jessica Toussaint from Dream Encore Enterprises. Jessica, welcome to Real Talk.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Gene, today.
Oh my goodness, how have you been?
I have been really, really good, really, really good. What about you?
I've been great. Of course, it's so good to see on my platform, Real Talk with Gene Price. I'm glad you're here tonight. And I know you have a lot of information that you're going to be sharing with us. I'm excited about it. I'm really excited. Can you kind of greet my guests, just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me today. So my name's Jessica Toussaint. So I am the founder of Dream Encore Enterprises. So I started it last year, but I was doing a lot of the work pre-pandemic, right? So I just formalized the work. I am a certified life and success coach. I do a lot of strategy with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of churches and organizations. And I help people take their dreams and ideas and really help them move it from an idea into. And so that's a lot of my passion, helping people give birth to their dreams, giving birth to the very thing that they've been that's been germinating in their hearts and actually giving birth to it. So I'm excited to be here just to talk about it, right? A lot of us have these dreams, these passions, and it's time for us to give birth to it.
Yes, it's true. I have to ask that question, Jessica. What inspired you? Because here you are on this side. What was it like? Two questions. What inspired you, and what was it like before you got to this point?
So, great question. So what inspired me was like a lot of times, right? We have these ideas we're just sitting on, right? We're always helping other people. And I felt like it was time for me to take action, right? It was time for me to step out. Like it's great to support other people, but what happens to the moment I need to? So that was one. And
Right.
two, getting to the other side was taking a chance to bet on me, to bet on my dreams,
Wow.
and to monetize the very gifts that God has already given me, right? Each of us have something that God's gifted us with. And so it's time for us to really take initiative and begin to monetize it.
Yeah, so true. And we both have church backgrounds, churches and so forth. And during the pandemic, and it's interesting you brought that up because churches kind of had to take, like you would say, to the next level or whatever. For those of us, right, that were not like consciously involved with streaming and all of that, we kind of had to shift. So if a church is right here, say a church is stagnant, how does the church even begin to move forward? Like, what is the criteria that you use for helping the church move to that next level?
So I think you have to kind of assess where the church is. So I like to do a SWOT analysis, right? So SWOT meaning strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So looking at like what do we do really well, right? And continuing to do it, right? If it's not broke, why fix it? But
Right.
then like what are our weaknesses? What are areas that we need to start to address, right? A lot of times, especially pre-pandemic, there were things, right, that the church should have addressed, right? And maybe we didn't address it for several reasons, right? And
Yeah.
so in the pandemic, we had no choice but to address it, right? Like
Yeah.
technology. Some
Yeah.
of us didn't felt like it wasn't necessary, it wasn't relevant. In the
Mhm.
pandemic, we learned we all need it, right?
Right.
To survive.
Absolutely.
So we learned that in terms of
Mhm.
weaknesses, assessing that. Opportunities, looking at like what are some pivotal opportunities, moments, what are things that we could be maximizing right now, this season, this moment. What are our members? What do they have? What influences? What
Good.
relationships?
Yeah.
What things do they have in them that we're not captivating right now, right? And then
Right.
threats. If we don't do this, what will happen?
Mhm.
Like for some churches, if we did not pivot to technology, our churches would be extinct. That's a threat.
Yeah.
If we don't take safety precautions, our members will be sick. That's a threat.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
we do,
Yes.
like a SWOT analysis to really look
Yeah.
at the scope of the church.
Wow, that was powerful. That makes a lot. That made a lot of sense. So then, what's a common mistake that businesses? Because I don't want to just lend it just to churches. Because church, honestly, we run our church. It's a business. It is a church,
It
but
is
we run it. It
business.
is a business. So I'm an administrator. We run it like a business. So, to your knowledge, what's one of the common mistakes that we make as a business?
I think sometimes we don't count the cost. I think we have these great ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't really count like what will it cost us in terms of capital? What will it count in
Right.
terms of capital people, and capital in terms of resources, right?
Yes.
And then sometimes as visionaries, we do this really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't give us staying power, or we do a quick
Okay.
win, but we don't look at it in terms of long term. So I
Okay.
think, in terms of really thinking of like the bigger picture,
Right.
and really in business, even in church, either way, either sector, marketplace or ministry, we have
Right.
to look at your win may not be immediate, right? Sometimes it's the things you're doing in the background
Yeah.
is what's going to give the bigger fruit in the long run. And so instead of trying to get this big win to put the shout out on social media, take care of counting the cost, right? Maybe filling out that paperwork, that LLC, instead of
Yes.
throwing up all the social media stuff, right? But then we don't have the background paperwork done, right? So it's important
Right.
that we really count the cost.
That is, I have to just stay there for 1 second because we're in churches. A lot of churches, I don't want to say a lot, several churches or churches might not have, or businesses have their paperwork in order. And it's so important to have, whether you're LLC, whether you're 501c3, it is so important when it presents itself. I think that's what we're both saying. When that opportunity presents, it's so important to be ready to just be able to take, charge and be able to do something with the opportunity. So when the opportunity presented to you to help churches, what were some of the things that you came across? Was it difficult in getting people to change? Was it difficult to getting people, and I got to laugh out of you, was it difficult in getting people to understand transition is necessary?
Mhm.
And I don't know sometimes if people understand that you have to transition. So, what were some of the difficulties that you experienced in that vein? You know what I'm saying? Because let me just say this again. During the pandemic, they had this grant, and we were notified as a church. You can apply for this grant, so forth, so on. And let me tell you, Jessica, our paperwork was on point. That's one thing I am. I am a stickler for organization. But to your point, what happens when you don't? How do you go back? How do you fix the missed opportunities?
Mm.
And I think that is so important. And I think we need to talk about that because we have our viewing audience that's listening. There are a lot of missed opportunities. How do we fix it? Or how do we get another opportunity to get an opportunity?
Yeah, that's really good. I think we have to look at the missed opportunities as teachable moments, right? That instead of looking at as regret or shame, we have to say, okay, this is a marker. I could have qualified for this. So you know what? What was part of that grant that I didn't do? Let
Mm,
me get it
yes,
together. So
yes.
next time that cycle comes, I can go. So a perfect example
Mhm.
was a lot of businesses, especially minority owned, right?
Yes.
Did not in the pandemic, tons of money was going out, but a lot of people didn't qualify. Why? And I
Mm,
remember I was talking to my friends and I was like, oh, aren't you getting the grant money that they're
right.
giving out for businesses? But because they weren't LLCs. So if you think about it, they were just having hobbies, you know, and I was like, my God, like, and for
Right.
years they were known as freelance graphic artists, freelance
Mhm.
consultants, freelance, but they didn't have their paperwork. They were hairstylists, they were this and that. But I never knew they never had their paperwork. And so when opportunities came, they didn't get the free money. And
Mhm.
so when you look at that, for
Yes.
me, I was like, oh no, we have to get our paperwork together. We
Yeah.
have to. And so I think it's looking at that. And I think it's looking at our resources, right? And learning to ask for help. I think a lot of us have shame around that, right? Learning to say, I don't know what it
Mhm.
is, right?
Mhm.
And learning to invest in yourself, right?
Mhm.
Take an investment looks different. It may be invest on your level, right? It may be you have the resources, so you get a coach, or
Right.
you may not have the resources. You go online, right? The
Mhm.
University of YouTube. You go online and look at the website and
Mhm.
look at what's needed, right? And start doing the work, even if it's in pieces, right?
Yes.
What is it Martin Luther King said? If you can't run, then what is it? If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then run, then crawl, but
Mhm.
keep on moving, right? I think we have to start to do that and not look at defeat and just say, okay, I missed it, so then I stop. And then you keep missing it, but just take the step to keep
Right.
going.
Right. That's really powerful what you said. Oftentimes you find that people feel ashamed or inadequate. And the reason I asked that question, I have a couple of LLCs, and one of them that we did in Zamar and the team was a part of it. We did Positive Apparel, and it's a workout line. And I'm so glad you brought that up tonight because I've been asked several times, "Where's your workout line? Where's your line?" And I'm being very having a transparent moment, but it's like I would say to myself, "I'm too busy." I'm
Mhm.
too busy to go back and get them, get the product and make sure that kept saying I'm too busy. But I love the fact that you talked about the missed opportunity because I believe that if I would have put busyness aside, Martha, that Positive Apparel could have been risen again. So when you have those visions and those opportunities, do you do classes that can help people kind of refresh and start again?
Yes. I do that. And I also think it's because sometimes I think we lose, like you said with Martha, because I can be a Martha myself. I think what happens is sometime vision, when we get, especially as women, right, we're doing so many things in different balls and so many court. Sometimes vision gets stagnant,
Hmm.
right? And it's okay that it sits. And then sometimes we just need to like rejuvenate it, right? And I think have these kind of conversations or have other people in the room. And it's like when you think of a woman that's pregnant and you
Yes.
have a bunch of people that are pregnant together and
Mhm.
you're all talking about the same thing.
Yes, yes,
Like and
yes,
everyone like, oh, I'm due on this date. I'm due
yes.
this
That's so good.
different. It kind of motivates everyone in
Mhm.
that room.
So good. Yes.
And so yeah, I'm looking to do actually something in October in between. I did something last year in October to do something like that. But yeah, definitely things like that because it's important that leaders get together.
Yeah. As soon as you even said that, Jessica, I was looking at you. I could feel myself just getting like bubbly, like really
Aw.
bubbly. Because we both like business and entrepreneur and LLCs, and you're so right. You can get a room with
Mhm.
women, filled with women, and we're talking about. Listen, I can have my LLC. Listen, I have my trademark is done, and we start dialoguing. And my husband often says, so much comes out of conversation.
Yeah, so much.
A lot of creativity comes out of conversation. What's some of the dialogues that you've had that have been successful? And what I mean is that it's been able to be a mentor type ship for someone else. Because just hearing you talk just now just got me excited. Like, whoa, maybe I need to revisit positive apparel again, you know?
Well, I think it's important, right, that we don't see each other as like competition, but we
Right.
see it in terms of collaboration. So, like when one person went, like, so I think for me, I love to hear the journey of someone, right,
Mm,
and the authenticity, because a lot of times we get to only hear the highlight reel, right? We only hear like, I started a business and now I'm a millionaire, but we
mhm.
don't know, like, no, I struggled.
What would it take?
I
Right.
put that thing on the shelf,
Mhm, mhm.
and then I had to take it
Right.
up. So I think for me, I've had like moments that I've called other entrepreneurs and say, "Well, how did you do that?
Right.
Like, what did you do? What was the strategy that you took?" And
Right.
I think what really benefited me was when they were honest, right, and they were transparent,
Yes.
when they were willing to share their story. Because I was like the testimonies, right? Like if God did it for them, like He'll do it
Mhm.
for me. So it was very encouraging to in terms of that. Again, it's not in my opinion competition. It really is collaboration.
Right. I like the fact that you said that. And for those that are listening, I thank Jessica for that statement. It's not competition, but it's collaboration. Because when you have that kind of mindset, which I appreciate about you, if you go up, I go up. You know what
Exactly.
I'm saying? And I love it. And oftentimes, before pandemic, and even now, when I have women, I have to go out and teach, preach, whatever. Oftentimes, we have a taught. I feel this way. We are taught the mindset of competing. And we don't need to compete. I love your word. We need to collaborate. And guess what? Another C word I want to throw in there and celebrate. I need
Yeah.
to celebrate, right?
Yeah.
Celebrate the
Sure.
accomplishments of Jessica because when it's my turn, Jessica can turn around. You know what I'm saying? You can turn around and celebrate my accomplishments. So that is so. And listen to my viewing audience. Catherine is listening tonight. Yesenia is listening. And if you guys have businesses, you want to listen to the tools that Jessica is saying tonight because she said something that's so true. It's not competition, but it's collaboration. And if you can get the mindset and understand, we don't have to compete with each other as Black women. We don't have to. And in our culture, we are taught to be jealous of one another. We're taught to know she can't be better than me. No, Jessica can climb that mountain as high as she can. And guess what? So can I. And I think that's just really important. I'm sorry. I know I went off.
No, it's so true. And then what happens is when I get there, guess what? I open the door. Vice versa. That's
Hello.
what other cultures do, right? We can do the same thing for each other. That's what they
It's so true.
do.
It's so true.
Like
And
it's time
if
for us
we
to
could
do
just
it.
talk about that a little bit, why is it like that you feel in our culture that we do that to one another? Why?
I don't know. I don't know. I think some of it is years of our mind, right? Like I think it's
Yes.
mindsets. I think
Mhm.
it's like generational things
Yes.
that have taken from one generation to the next.
Yeah.
Um and I think we just have to deal with our mindsets, right? I think it's generational curses that we've
Okay.
inherited,
Yes. Yeah.
and then insecurities that have been fed, it's our responsibility to
Mhm.
destroy, because other cultures celebrate, other cultures nominate each other for promotions,
Yeah.
whether they're qualified or not, right?
Yeah.
Because we just don't do it. And at times we are. I think I see us doing it
Mhm.
more. Um, but I think it's important that we're intentional about it.
Yes, and yes, Bishop Derek Price just chimed in and said we have to be conditioned to despise. We have been conditioned, excuse me, to
Mhm.
despise each other's success. Not because he's my husband and my bishop, but he's absolutely correct. We
Yeah.
have been conditioned to do that because oftentimes, you heard of the story. I don't know if I'm telling my age, but the story of the crabs that are in the pot, that
Yeah.
if one tries to get up, the other one tries to pull them back down.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because if I can get out that pot, all I'm gonna do is take my claw for you to grab it so I can pull you out with me. And you know what I'm saying? Like
Uh-huh.
that is so important. And I
Yeah.
hope those that are listening tonight, you can hear what Jessica's saying, what we're talking about, because we want to help facilitate. I should say. The kind of culture where we really do celebrate one another, we see each other going forward. I have another question, Jessica. How important is it, right, for owners and entrepreneurs, as what we're saying, to even have that kind of support? How important is that? What is your opinion on that?
So I think it's very important, right? And I think what happens is the entrepreneurship journey is hard, right? I think it's not for the faint of heart. I will say that. And like it's hard because you're in your lane and you're trying to survive, right? Especially if you do it full time, right? But I think it's important to have like-minded people that
Right.
get your journey,
Mhm.
that can encourage you, that can celebrate you, that you can be transparent with, right? Because some people only get it because they're in the journey with you. Maybe people that are ahead of you, right, that you can glean from, and
Mhm.
then some people that may not be as head, so that you can add to them, right? I think
Yes.
it's important that you have a healthy tribe, in addition to normal people, but I think it's
Right.
important that
Right.
it's holistic, so that you're growing as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's true. And Jessica, it's so true because people, I don't know, well, some people that, my husband has a lot of conversations, he's an entrepreneur as well, but people think that entrepreneurship and ownership just comes that quick.
And
There you are. Wait, hold on. The money's coming in. And I know you've heard this statement, I don't want to work for anybody. You know what I'm saying? I don't think people understand it's not that easy. Like you just said, I just want to piggyback up what you said because I thought that was so good. It really is not that easy. So don't get rid of the branch that you're holding on to, right? And because you got to be able to take the other arm and reach the other branch. And I want to talk about that a little bit because people think entrepreneurship happens overnight. It
yeah,
does not.
no, it doesn't. I heard like a financial coach once
Yes.
that I think she suggested, I think you should have 3 months, maybe 3 to 6 months of your salary saved before
Okay.
you take the dive of full-time entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
For me, how I do it, so to speak, is I use, like right now, I work full time and then
Mm-hmm.
I do my entrepreneurship on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So for until at some point I will be full time. But what
Mm-hmm.
I do, I use the resources I have from my full time job, right,
Awesome.
to use to get staff to do whatever I need. So I'm not like, oh my God, I'm able
Right.
to really invest into my business. And I don't think people realize it because once you take the leap, right? People are like, okay, I want to be fully invested into my business.
Right.
Well, where are the resources coming from? Right? We don't
Exactly.
get, in theory, you may get a grant here or there, but
Mm-hmm.
you still need capital to run everything.
You do.
And so unless you have like a lot of startup cash somewhere,
Mhm.
at some point you're going to run out of cash unless you're,
Right.
so my opinion is you start to invest some of that funding while you're working until you get to a specific point where your business is making a certain level of revenue. You've
Right.
saved up some money, like the financial coach has said, that you're able to take the leap. So God forbid if you hit a rough month, because you're going to hit some months that are not as high as
Yes.
others, you're
Yes.
able to pass through.
Yeah, that was powerful. And oftentimes I hear people talk about, we're going to take a commercial, but I hear people talk about, Jessica, the ROI.
Yes,
You can't, right? You can't get a return on your investment until you learn how to properly invest.
that's so
We're gonna
true.
You know what I'm saying? We're going to stop right there. This is such good stuff. To my viewing audience, I hope you're getting a lot of stuff from this well-known entrepreneur who's got some key points. But we're going to take a commercial, and we'll be right back with Jessica from Dream Core Enterprises.
This week on Real Talk with Gene Price.
Before the flight ever takes off, the pilot looks at the co-pilot and they go through worst case scenarios. They say, what are we going to do if the engine fails? Or if we hit some bad weather? And they just talk. And just because they did that, they literally saved lives. It's like they studied for a test that they didn't know if they would have, right? don't look at the exit sign because you don't want to entertain the idea of using an exit sign. But acknowledging this discomfort and dealing with that worst case scenario is the best comfort you could ever give yourself.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Jean Price. Listen, I hope you guys are tuning in. This has been such a great show. My guest is phenomenal. Oh my goodness, we are learning so much about what's it like to be an entrepreneur, but really doing it the right way and understanding the key principles behind it. And listen to my guest, Catherine, Yesenia, Bishop Price, chime in, ask questions. Jessica's here. She's going to help us get through this. So, Jessica, I want to welcome you back to Real Talk with Jean Price. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Always. Oh my goodness. This has been so good, Jessica. I have to tell you honestly. Before we went to commercial break, I was talking about the ROI, the return on your investment. And in order to get the ROI, you have to learn how to invest. So then my next question, what is one way for business leaders to prevent burnout?
So that's great. That's a great question. So I think we have to schedule self-care, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And have like some sort of self-care plan, right? So maybe it's once a month, you do something, maybe it's once a week, you actually schedule time out. Because entrepreneurship, the pro and con, right? You get to make your own schedule.
Yeah.
But entrepreneurs don't turn off, right? Like it's not like a 9 to 5, like you clock in, clock out, right? You're looking at your emails, you're like, you intentionally have to turn off. So whatever that looks like for you, setting up some self-care, putting some time, to spend time with your family, being very intentional.
Okay, I got to go back to that. You said something that was so powerful. Entrepreneurs, are you listening to Jessica tonight? You have to turn off. And turning off means what? Self-care, and turn off your phone, because I'm joking, but I'm serious. But think about this for a second. Every time you, some entrepreneurs, they have their phone on, and I get it. You got to check your texts, you got to check your emails. But isn't there a time that you just want to turn that phone off? And I'm glad you said that, because people have to learn that there still is life.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think to me, that's one of the key points that I find in dealing with business people, that they lose life. And one of the teachings that I do is called winning behind the business, because you can be so great at business, like corporate women, Wall Street, whatever. We have a corporation as well. You can be so great at it, but behind that, you could be losing so much.
So much. That's so true.
You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the teachings that I do, because you got to know how to live behind all of that business and all of that. So what does planning for success look like to you, Jessica?
So planning for success is like coming up with some actual goals, right? Goals 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, right? And then actually coming up with like, what does those wins look like, right? And then like actually planning out some steps to get there. And making sure they're realistic, they're SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time, right? Like making sure that these things align, because sometimes we have these goals and then they're like so far reaching that they don't happen, right? So making sure that they're realistic and that they're actually manageable, so that someone said, like, how do you eat an elephant, right? You eat it in bite sizes, so that actually manageable and doesn't become overwhelming.
That's a good point, because sometimes we can set those goals that I think it's so far extreme. And I love what you said about how do you eat an elephant, just small bites, because sometimes it's okay to take those steps as you're obtaining the goals. Another thing I realized, Jessica, and you can, of course, help me with this one. Sometimes we don't even celebrate the small goal. Wait, right? We don't celebrate the small goals, because then it's almost like you take the disappointment of it, of the little steps, but you also don't celebrate it. I'm learning, even at 56, to celebrate every goal, everything you attain is so important to celebrate. How do you feel about that? About when you're working with your clients, just teaching them that key principle. I love what you said about making it measurable, making it attainable, making it where it's reachable. Just how did you come up with that concept? Because that's powerful. That's really powerful.
So I do agree with you. We don't take time to celebrate ourselves. And when
Yeah.
we don't celebrate ourselves, we like, because it's always about the next win, right? Because it's like the hustle, like how do I get
Yeah.
the next win?
Yeah.
But when we don't do that, then when a loss comes, because it will come, right? We will get a loss.
Yes.
So what happens is that we don't have any evidence. So the win is evidence that this works, evidence that I'm called to this, evidence that I'm gifted for this, right?
Mhm.
So it's important that we start to use the wins as landmarks, right? The wins represent, I can do this, right? That I'm gifted for this. So it's important,
Yeah.
so for me with my clients, it becomes like and people do it, maybe it's a journal that they write it down.
Okay. Right.
Maybe it's a jar that they put it in.
Mhm.
Maybe they type it up. It's a timeline, right? Because it's a reference point. So when a challenge comes, they're reminding themselves, hey, wait a minute. We faced this crisis before and we came out.
Right.
So we'll get out of this before. We'll get out of this again.
Can I ask you a question? We had the pandemic, of course, everybody knows, but what do you think pushed small businesses to launch? Because I noticed that a lot of businesses began to uh, break forth rather, when the pandemic hit. Do you think that played a role in a lot of small businesses taking forth?
Yeah, I think so I think a couple things.
Okay.
So I think people are home, right? They had time on their hands, right?
Yes. I'm still home, but yes.
Yeah, I think that. I think people stop, like, I think people started losing faith in the institutions, right? When certain places started to close that you
Yeah.
never thought would have closed, right?
Yeah.
That weren't able to make the pivot because of
Mhm.
technology, because of whatever.
Right.
I think I don't know. I think people started to like say, you know what? I've been working for XYZ for
Mhm.
this person. I'm going to take the chance on myself. I think when people are on unemployment, right? Because some people are on unemployment for 2 years, they
Yeah.
use that money because a lot of money was coming in, right?
Yes.
People
Yes.
use that money to invest in themselves, right? So I think for several reasons, right? And I applaud them for taking
Mhm.
advantage of that.
Mhm.
And then there were a lot of resources. I think people had time to educate themselves for the first time,
That's
to
good.
look at
Yes.
what a small business is, to look at what an S corp is versus an LLC, do the
Yes.
research. And there was a lot of information, free
Mhm.
information, right?
Mhm.
People on
Mhm.
Clubhouse giving free webinars. Everyone was giving out information. It was
That's
so
good.
much information. If you didn't take it at that time,
Right.
you didn't
Right.
want information. So I
Mhm.
think it was a huge surge. And a lot of, when you look at society, a lot of millionaires, right? A lot of great ideas have always come out of tragedy, out of these
Yeah.
circumstances.
Yep. That's so
So
true.
so it's just like I don't know. I guess it's us. We as humans are very resilient.
Wow, that's beautiful. How important, Jessica, is it to conquer the fear, though? Because it
Mm,
is fearful. Because like entrepreneurship,
mhm,
and my husband, he has that kind of mind. Entrepreneurs are risk takers,
mhm,
and believe it or not, I'm totally opposite. I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm very analytical, so
mhm,
I can just I need to analyze this for a second. So, how do you conquer the fear and take the risk as
mhm.
an entrepreneur?
So I think it goes back to counting the cost, right?
Okay.
And if you start to count the cost and then you start to plan things out,
Mhm.
there's still always going to be fear, but at least you'll have some sort of a plan, right? At least you're not like, I'm quitting my job tomorrow and I'm going to
Right.
be an entrepreneur,
Right.
but you're actually taking some action. You're pulling some money out. You're working with a branding expert, right? You're
Mhm.
taking some pictures. You're writing your business plan. You're sitting with some potential investors. You're doing your pieces. You're being diligent. You're stewarding your
Yeah.
idea, whatever that is, afraid, right? We're doing it afraid, but you're actually taking action, right? So fear, just because you have fear, just because you have that butterfly in your stomach, doesn't mean you don't take the action. It just means
Yes.
you prepare, right? That action, fear, we always talk about it in a bad sense, but fear can also be used in a good sense, right? Think about it.
Yes. Yes.
You're afraid to touch that stove, right?
Mhm.
That is a fear. That's good for fear, right? Like, fear is also used to kind of stop us from doing certain things,
Mhm. Understand.
to go too far off edge,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's like a balance. It's when use fear too much that it causes us to be crippled. I think that's the part
Wow,
when fear
that's
becomes
good.
too bad, right? It's when the barometer goes too much that it makes us paralyzed. But again, you can still navigate through fear,
Right,
do it afraid, but again, take the right steps.
right. Wow. Say that again now. The barometer can cause paralysis. I'll just kind of change it up just a little bit. So the barometer, take
Yeah,
that
this
was really good.
barometer of fear, right? But
Right.
we get to decide if it's too much in one direction, right?
Yeah.
That's where paralysis hits. But
Hmm.
we still fear is needed, right? Like if you think you're gonna go be drunk driving, guess what?
Hmm.
If you don't have a fear of that, guess what? You're gonna go and kill someone, God forbid, right?
Right.
But it's a fear, or like if you're not afraid of your parent, certain things I didn't do when I was a child because I had a fear of my
Right.
parents,
Right.
and that was a good fear, right? But if I was so afraid of my parents that it caused me never to tell them something, that's paralysis, right?
Right.
I had a healthy fear of it.
God.
So again, I think you have to look at the barometer of what
Yeah, I like that. That was really good. It can you be too over prepared, like when you're trying to build, and
yeah, you
is
can.
that possible?
Yeah,
Why?
you
How
can,
does that happen?
because you can be too much in your head that you're over preparing, overthinking, that you never give birth, that you never, like
Yeah.
that you procrastinate. And you're never going to be prepared. You're never going to have it all together. You're constantly going to be evolving. So you just do
Right.
the steps, do as much as you
Mhm.
can.
Mhm.
And then that's it. You step out on faith. Fear is present. And
Right.
as you continue, you'll see what happens.
Right. So if you had to encourage, and I'm going to give you a visual to kind of think of, there's some girls that are looking up to you somewhere that are listening to your voice. If you had to encourage them or to mentor them as a life coach, as an entrepreneur, what would you say to them if they're looking at you like, I want to be like Jessica. I want to team what Jessica has, and they're young because you'd be surprised. I guess what I'm saying, people watch our lives,
Mm.
and sometimes we don't even know they're watching. What would you say to them?
I would say each and every one of you has something to contribute. And so the world needs what you have. And so but it's your responsibility to give it to us.
Mm,
And so don't think we don't need it just because you're not doing it,
right.
and just cultivate it, right?
Mhm.
Invest in it, ask for help, and
Yeah,
take action because we need it. God wouldn't have you here in
that's right.
this moment, in this season, in this time, and more than ever, whatever it is that's inside of you, we need.
We need. That's beautiful. And if you had to say something to business owners, for those of us that are still in business, what words of encouragement could you give us? Because I love what you were saying tonight. Being overwhelmed can overtake you sometime. You can get frustrated as an entrepreneur, as a business person. What could you say to encourage us to keep going? And mind you, sometimes you're so in it that you can't stop, but you sometimes need that merry-go-round, that wheel to just stop. So how would you encourage us?
To be kind to yourself as visionaries, as business people, and that the dreams that we have will happen, but it won't happen if we burn ourselves out. And so that we pace ourselves, because the
Mhm.
only person we're trying to beat is the better version of ourselves. And so it's important that we pace ourselves, and that we pace ourselves so that we are at our optimum level to achieve the
Mhm.
dreams, the gifts, the things that we've been entrusted with.
Yeah. And to my viewing audience, for the few minutes that we have left, Jessica Tucson has definitely, you have given us so many giftings and tools. How would somebody reach you, Jessica? How would they, how would they get in touch with you to even see what you're offering to be a part of that program? Because those that are listening are people watching that are trying to be entrepreneurs. But yeah, you said something that was so key tonight. You didn't jump, you still haven't jumped out there without letting your job go. And that's good because you have to have the resource. So how do people get in touch with Jessica to go forward, to move forward, to make it happen?
Sure. So I have a website. It's www.letsdreamencore.com. So let's dream, ENCORE.com. Or you can email me at jess@letsdreamencore.com.
I'm going to thank you. They put it in the chat for those that are on the show tonight. It's in the chat. www.letsdream.com. Reach out to Jessica. She has given us some great tools tonight. A woman that's filled with knowledge on entrepreneurship and what she does, which is amazing. It's so good. God, to have somebody go ahead and go through all the hardships of it, just struggling with it, and then turn around and be a blessing to someone else. So tonight, we want to thank you, Jessica, for joining us on Real Talk. We invite you to go. You got to keep us posted.
Okay.
What you have going on, and just even different things that you might be doing, any webinars or Zoom meetings, because whatever people are doing, keep us posted, because I think you have a wealth of knowledge that's necessary, and it's definitely needed out there. So I'm going to say to my viewing audience tonight, to Yesenia, to Catherine, to Bishop Price chimed in tonight. If you have any questions to Jessica before we close out the show for the last 2 minutes of the show, please feel free to write it in the chat that she can respond to those questions and, go from there, and just leave you guys with something to really ponder, something to really think about as you get an ROI for those that want to invest in being an entrepreneur. If not, we're going to just close the show. We want to thank you, Jessica, again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for being on Real Talk tonight. It was absolutely amazing. We're so glad you came on. Listen to the viewing audience, and those that are going to watch the replay, we want you to like. We want you to comment. We want you to share. Jessica's information is www.letsdream.com. And listen, we all have those dreams that we would like to bring forth, but we thank God for her tonight. You don't want to miss what she has going on. Join me next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., where we will be sitting right here on Real Talk with Jean Price, where we'll be having real issues, real conversations for real people. Kim Baptiste chimed in tonight. Thank you, Kim, for joining us. Again, we want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you. Real Talk is real. We'll see you next week. God bless you. Have a good night.
This week on Real Talk with Jean Price.
Before the flight ever takes off, the pilot looks at the co-pilot and they go through worst case scenarios. They say, what are we going to do if the engine fails? Or if we hit some bad weather? And they just talk. And just because they did that, they literally saved lives. It's like they studied for a test that they didn't know that they would have, right? And I know that many of you are not pilots, right? I do know one thing about every single one of you, and it is that you cannot predict the future. This is about how you had the same chance as the person next to you that something bad is going to happen. But by just understanding mental models, you can prepare for it right now. We, as humans, want to turn away from anything that makes us anxious. You don't look at the exit sign because you don't want to entertain the idea of using an exit sign. But acknowledging this discomfort and dealing with that worst case scenario